Hey, it's Kivi Miller with nonprofitmarketingguide.com. Are you having trouble getting program staff to meet your deadlines as a communications professional? Let's talk about how to fix that today. One of the reasons we know this is a big issue is because you tell us it's a big issue, but also because we have data now from the 2022 Trends Report that also confirms that this is a big issue. So as you can see from the chart here, most of you are doing this on your own. It's your responsibility, or it's no one's responsibility, which is also a little infuriating, I know. So we need to figure out how to manage this. So how do we get people to cooperate? So I've got 3 different categories of strategies that you can try. You're probably going to need to use a little bit of everything, but let's go through these choices and hopefully a couple of things you'll think, yeah, maybe I can do a better job with that and make that work for my organization. So let's start out with transparency at first. So what do I mean by that? Well, when you're having meetings and deciding what the deadlines are going to be, it's not like this is secret information. So go ahead and make it really visible and transparent. Make it public what the deadlines are. So if you use software where you can keep track of project management, assignments and deadlines, that's a perfect place to put it. Everyone can see it. If you don't, if you're in an office environment, maybe there's a shared whiteboard where you can put deadlines where people can see it. If you're not in a shared environment, but you're doing Zoom meetings, share your screen and show everybody's deadlines. You got to put it out there and make sure that not only the people who you're talking to about creating content for you are seeing the deadlines, but hopefully everybody is seeing the deadlines. That breeds more accountability for folks. I also want you to think about being much more specific than you might be when you say things like, oh, I need a blog post by the end of the month, or can you get me that article next week? That is often not specific enough for people. So you need to say something like, Friday the 4th at 3 p.m. Eastern is when I need that draft. Or maybe you even come up with earlier deadlines for people. I need the concept, I need the outline by this certain date at this certain time. Don't be really wishy-washy about time periods. That is no way to set a deadline. And then next, I want you to think about ways that you can make the progress towards those deadlines public too. So if someone is giving you a draft, the first draft, maybe you check off on the big whiteboard or you announce at the staff meeting, Joe gave me the first draft. I'm excited to edit it and we're going to keep working on it together. Again, it's all about that public accountability to each other and not just to you. And it's a good way to remind people too, like your program staff are super busy. They need those reminders too. So giving those reminders in meetings, etc., can be really helpful. Okay, so that's our first approach, is just making it much more visible to both the people who are creating content and everybody else in the organization. The next category I want you to think about is motivation. So why is somebody going to help you, right? Like you have to really figure out a way for them to see that it's in their self-interest too. So the first thing you need to do, and this is a larger, longer term problem in a lot of organizations, and so it's going to take a while to get through this. But if people don't understand the value of communications in your organization to begin with, you've got to start there. You have to make sure that they really understand the reason that you are there and the job that you've been assigned and how that really helps the organization overall. And then you want to start thinking about more specific carrots and sticks to motivate people. So things like carrots are the rewards. And, sometimes people do things like, I'm going to give a gift card if someone turns in a really good story. But, just even going back to things like staff meetings where you're recognizing people for meeting deadlines and getting you good content, that's a form of reward. If you've got that whiteboard, putting stars by people's names, it's really kind of simple, basic stuff. But just letting people know that they're doing a good job really goes the distance these days. And it doesn't even have to come, from you. Maybe you can get your executive director to do some little shout outs when people are meeting your deadlines and being helpful. On the stick side, that's a little trickier, right? Especially if you don't have authority over folks. But there are things you can do. So maybe one of your rules of the road is that you don't put stuff on social media until it's already been in the newsletter or on your website or on your blog or wherever. It's just part of your workflow. So if staff people want their stuff on social, maybe you say, well, I'm not going to put it on social until you get me the blog post. So you can kind of play around with some of that workflow and use that to help you as well. I also want you to think about what it's going to take to help them achieve their own goals. So again, this kind of goes back to connecting it to the bigger picture. But if there's something specific about their own programmatic goals that you know communications is helping with, it's really important for you to connect those dots. Don't assume that people are going to know how to connect those dots themselves. They very often don't get it. They don't really get what you do as a communications professional, so it's going to be hard for them to connect those dots on their own too. All right, so we've talked about being more transparent about the deadlines, really thinking through motivations to get people to cooperate, and the final tip is about really building those relationships with folks. We tend to do things for people that we like and respect more than we do for people who we don't like or don't respect. So building that personal relationship with your program staff, your content creators is really important. They're much more likely to want to help you succeed if you get along well. I also want you to think about customizing the support that each person might need. And this does take a little more work on your part. But if there's someone who has trouble meeting deadlines because there's a specific kind of barrier they're having trouble with, maybe they don't know how to get started, maybe they need a template from you or some examples to follow, or maybe they're a perfectionist and you need to just really talk about, I just need the first draft, or I just need the outline. Or maybe it's someone who doesn't really think they're a good writer, but is more of a sort of verbal processor. Maybe you need to sit down and actually talk through what the article will be before they sit down to write. And then it's also important to, again, build more organizational accountability. And so one of the ways you can do that is just to bring other people into these conversations about deadlines. It may be supervisors. That would certainly be helpful to have that kind of authority to help you with getting people to meet deadlines, but it doesn't have to be. It can just be other colleagues where you're talking about, this is what I'm working on. Everybody's got a piece of the puzzle. Let's do this together. And again, that goes back to the transparency and also building those relationships. So there are a lot of good ways to hopefully encourage staff people to meet deadlines. These are just a few that I've highlighted for you today. And we give you content like this and all kinds of other great tips on Nonprofit Marketing Guide every week. So stop by and sign up. See you next time.